patriotic.
Well, yeah, especially when I hope everybody was able to witness the historical mission from SpaceX, the Dragon Endeavour astronauts Doug Hurley and, Ben Mackin that landed safely back home.
Yep, pretty amazing.
It was amazing to watch that actually on NASA TV.
Yeah. It brings me back to, when I was a kid and watching space shuttle missions and things, and being able to, really show that with my youngest is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, to watch that, both me and my husband were watching and we were like, it has been 45 years since NASA actually did a water landing. And I was thinking back, I was like, wow, 45 years. I actually remember some of those water landings. But there's some really cool fun facts about the astronaut I wanted to bring up. Both of them are dads.
Woohoo, yay dads.
And they're both married to astronauts from their class, which I thought was pretty cool. And I think one of them was really cool is I think it was Colonel Hurley's son that posted, or his wife posted on Twitter that the son was able to watch his dad's spaceship, on the launch pad, which I thought was really cool. Can you imagine those two boys, like, that's my dad.
Yeah. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome parents there.
Yeah, both of them actually. So it's pretty amazing. And we're glad that they made it safe back, home. And if you missed it, guess what? There's NASA TV.
Yep. YouTube.
Yep, YouTube. You can find it anywhere. Just type it in and here. All I have to say, and I got to say this, the landing was smooth as a Tesla.
I agree. Teslas are pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really was amazing. So I have to give it to Elon Musk and the rest of the SpaceX team and NASA for having that. They did really neat. It's not that it's making history, but they're also doing a lot of research out there. I think the fun punch was, they took fruit punch and foam up there, not to drink Kool-Aid because they wanted Kool-Aid to take, but it was to manage liquid and microgravity. I think that's pretty awesome.
Right. Well, and to be able to be current with the times and partner with organizations that have been doing this, so you've got the new innovation with people who know what they're doing. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's really, 2020 kind of stuff that we need to see more of in education.
Right. And I think the kids are lucky to watch this, by NASA for them to experience, this historical missions. So I give it to them. Applaud to them. Woohoo.
Yeah, good job.
So now we're going to deep dive into some questions. I know I always call it option B, distance learning. Distance learning.
Distance learning, yes. Well, it's not what, we, a year ago thought where we would be nationwide and worldwide. But we wanted, as we're trying to think about what do parents really need to know right now in August 2020, it's a majority of us are going to be utilizing distance learning. Yeah. And we need to know what questions to ask our ISD, our school, our teachers, so we are prepared and have the tools we need to help our students and to make sure the school knows these are the kinds of questions these parents need, so you need answers for.
Right, because I know a lot of public traditional schools as well as public charter schools were reaching out to the families like, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. And I know here in Harris County, school is delayed, but a lot of schools are starting soon, but they're going virtually. They're going to start up school virtually in the beginning. Right. And this is where all these questions come up.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to be prepared for when we hit go on distance learning for our traditional and charters and private and, all those kinds of schools that weren't doing distance learning a year ago. I almost don't even like calling what happened in the spring distance learning. It was more pandemic school or crisis schooling. It was, kind of thrown into it. They've had a couple months now to figure some things out. So they should have the answers to these questions.
And I think now too, parents like us are more prepared to where like, oh, okay, You know, I had to do this pandemic, like you mentioned, pandemic learning in the spring, and now I got some questions. You know, I have a lot of questions to ask with schools reopening. And so this is what we're going to bring to you to talk about these questions to make sure our kids are safe and also educated.
Right, right. Get them what they need. You know, we need a lighthouse through this storm. We're all going into this storm, and we are really looking to our schools to have what they need to get our kids to where they need to be so they're not behind, for sure.
Right.
For sure. Where, Wendy, where can they find these questions so they don't have to hurriedly write them down?
Right. So if you didn't bring your, you know, pen, paper, pencil, you know, your notebook, you can find all of these questions that we're going to be talking about today and anything that we talked about in the past in our show at My Child, My Voice website, which is www.mychildmyvoice.org. Is a great place to find all of the documents we're talking about, so that you can, at the click of a button, just, you know, get all those questions down. Like, hey, I never thought of that question. It's right there at your fingertips.
Right, right. Yeah. And so just as in case you're new to our show, I am with the National Coalition for Public School Options. And for over a decade, I have utilized full-time virtual school for my kids. So I know a little ins and outs of utilizing technology as a packaging for providing public school. So that's why we were hurriedly going, okay, what are these questions we really need to make sure parents ask so they can get the answers they need. So I think the first question on everybody's mind is, when does school start?
Yeah.
Right? Because first it was going to start this, for some districts around the country, it was going to start here, and now it's going to start here, now it's going to start here. So where do I find that information, Wendy? How can I know where or when my school starts?
Well, first of all, I mean, it's always good to go back to your child's school district's website. And also, I mean, throughout this pandemic learning, you've gotten a chance to connect with your children's teachers. Ask them as well. There might be I'm going to say this because a lot of times when I was in my child's school website, I would get lost trying to maneuver, trying to find. But most of them are really good about posting it right in front. You know, school starts XYZ on the website, you know, and a lot of them are actually posting on social media like, hey, guess what? School started.
Right.
Just make sure to verify that information. Go, you know, either call your your child's school district, and then, or check their website and social media, because you want to make sure, like we mentioned before, a lot of them are saying, no, they've been pushing back the start date. So you want to verify, okay, I have the date, and make sure you're set up for alerts so that, you know, if something changes or they post something, you're, you know, getting that information. I'm pretty sure a lot of the schools are actually communicating with their parents, but just in case, you know, you miss that call or you miss getting a text message, make sure you double check.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a lot of the questions that's coming up is a lot of schools are making decisions on how they're going to do plan A, plan B, are they going to do virtual, in person. So I think the question is like, when can I decide to do in-person and virtual learning, and when do I have to give that decision to school district?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
School. I think that's a good question. You know, like,
Absolutely. What is my drop dead date? I have to make a decision for you.
right.
I'm hearing a lot saying 2 weeks out, and some parents going 2 weeks. A lot changes in 2 weeks, but I understand completely. You know, being when I was a teacher, you need to know what kids are coming into your class. You know, so you can educate them, so they can assign classes, you know, for them. Especially if they're offering both in-person and distance learning, they need to know which decision and which way you're going to go for that first, you know, little bit of however long that window is that they're offering that distance learning.
Yeah, because I know some schools are doing the hybrid option where they can go to school part of the day and then the rest of, you know, another day they're at home. So That's is making sure to understand what are your options that they're offering and knowing when you have to give that decision back to the school. And I think that's going to lead up to some other questions that we were thinking of.
Yeah.
When it comes to that
Like,
question.
yes, like, will classes, 100% of the classes be 100% distance learning? Or will some, do I have the option to be in person?
Mhm.
Do I have to do virtual? Do I have to do, in person? What exactly is my school down the street giving me as options so that I can then ponder, think about, pray, whatever you need to do to make that choice for your child. So make sure you completely understand what are my options for that start date.
Right. And understanding those options, if you have questions, ask, like a lot of times, like we mentioned before, when we're talking about these buzzwords, they mention a buzzword to you. Hey, wait, backtrack, can you tell me what you just said and what does that mean?
Right.
A lot of times, like I mentioned before, as a mom, I actually kept a notebook of words that the schools would tell me because I feel like they did it on purpose so that we wouldn't understand.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, we have our own lingo, parents have, got it. But ask those questions, make sure you clarify, like, hey, I want to make sure I understand what you're telling me because this is my child. This is a decision that's going to affect my child's education.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I think the next question is, can I pick, virtual learning for the whole year? That is a big question because some of them are saying, hey, we're going to start virtual. A lot of these schools are saying we're going to start virtual in August, but as of September, after September 8th, that plan changes. So, Shea, do you have anything?
Right, where others are saying, we're already telling you, right now we're virtual 100%, but then you will have the option to go in person or virtual the whole year. Now, not every state is offering that. Not every ISD is offering that. Right. And some states are mandating across the state how school will look. Mm-hmm. Some states, like in Texas, the governor is saying, I'm leaving it up to each individual ISD as to what they're going to do. So you need to find out for your state, do I have that option? Or when they go back in person, do I have to go back? And I don't have a choice.
Yeah. I think another good thing to really keep an eye on is, with all this pandemic cooties going on, what I did, because it was, the news is going, the radio is going, social media is going, and it's like, how do I keep up with all this information, right? So a lot of times what I did is I set up alerts that was specifically for my community, my city, my state, right? So I set up where I would get alerts when, our Houston mayor would come on. I would get alerts when the Texas governor would come on. I would set up alerts when Judge Hidalgo would come on, because these are the decision makers sending out information, pushing out information via social media or news. And I kept up with that so that I made sure, like, oh, wait a minute, the governor said this, but yet Judge Hidalgo says this. It's
right. So how did you do that, Wendy? What portal or what system did you use to set up alerts?
So you could say I'm a little social media troll. So I tend to go, I actually got tired of watching TV 24/7. I was just getting ahead of seeing all this. But the way I kept up with it was I set up alerts. I went on their Governor Abbott's social media, like his Twitter, his Facebook accounts. You can set up alerts to, like, if he ever goes live, I would get a notice like, hey, he's making an announcement, he's coming on live, same as our mayor and same as Judge Hidalgo. As well as I kept track of certain people that I know that were really quick on sending out information. Like we have Jacob Carpenter, who works for the Houston Post, the Houston Chronicle. Ooh, I'm showing my age because I said that. If Houstonians don't know what I'm talking about, never mind. I also followed reporters that I knew that were specifically in education. And Jacob Carpenter, I'm shouting him out, is one that I would follow, or Holly Hansen with the Texan. I would follow these reporters and seeing how they're reporting right away. that's another way to keep up, with times. I know if we're working, I got to do this. I don't have time to sit in front of the TV. I would get an alert on my phone. So
Right.
that's a great way to kind of follow and be in the news, in the know.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good idea, Wendy. I like it a lot. And then, so if another really good question is, if it's distance learning that your school's doing and that's the option that you're choosing for your kid, or that's the only option the school's offering, is it Monday through Friday? Is it, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. synchronous? Remember, so last week we talked about those buzzwords. Synchronous means live and happening right now. That means, am I sitting my kid in front of a computer for 7 hours and they're being taught the entire time? Right? So, or I was looking on Houston Independent School District's website, and they were saying the only information I saw about that was that it was Monday through Friday, and each day's assignments were due by 3:30 that day. That's all I could find so far. Of course, I'm not an HISD parent, so maybe there's another way to get that information. But I thought that was interesting. At least there was some information.
And I think that's really good to know. Is it's like, if it's due there, and if it's a lot of the concerns that were brought up with parents is like, hey, my kid got a lot of work, they can't finish, let's just say 3:30, because I come home at 5.
Right.
So this is where I'm sitting down with my kid, and I'm like, okay, we're going to make sure you're doing your homework. So communicate is the big thing. Communication is with the teachers, because I know teachers were really struggling as much as parents like us, trying to make sure their students were getting, their homework. They're making sure that they weren't lost because they didn't see something come in. So I think it's the communication, talk to the teachers and say, hey, I can tell you right now, I doubt if I can get my kid to finish by 3:30. I don't get home till 5. Can you give us until, a realistic time where, let's say, 9 o'clock, because there's some of us that work late.
Right.
And 9, 10 o'clock, or, in college, I remember it was 12 midnight is the deadline day.
Yep. That's what kids have.
So that's a good thing to actually, verify with the school, find out, when, the assignments are due, and then communicate, whether through the school portal,
Right.
however they have a way of communicating with you, but just make sure you stay on top of that and communicate with it. Because I know I had a lot of moms and, my family and friends were telling me, we have to tell the teacher, hey, I love you for calling me and seeing how my kid is doing. But out of the other 5 or 6 teachers that my kid got assignments with, he just finished 2 assignments. He wasn't able to get to yours yet, but he is doing it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He's on track.
Mm-hmm.
Another big question that I'm hearing from a lot of parents who are distance learning was, now, what about testing? Right? In Texas last year, our spring state testing was canceled.
Yep.
And will that be canceled again this upcoming year per state? They're deciding that. I did see for Texas, the 5th and 8th grade tests that usually you have to take to move on into, from grade school to middle school and middle school to high school, that will not be happening this spring, which is very interesting. The other thing is, if you're distance learning for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, however long, or until the rest of, the calendar year, what about unit tests or each lesson? How does the teacher know that they understood the content before they move on, right? That they know that their kids are getting it, and that this packaging of distance learning is working for their class. So that you need to know, how is testing working? Is there an online portal for testing? If it's a packet that you're giving me, are we turning packets in every Friday at the school?
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because it is different than what my kids did with full-time online, where the portals have been around for 2 decades. And so it's all online. They know every single day, every single lesson, if your kid understood. With distance learning, a lot of these ISDs are not using these proven portals. They're using something maybe new or something they just came up with. And how does testing work into that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where it gets into that question. Are my kids' assignments assigned via the school portal, or is it the packets? Because I know that was a lot of stuff going on in the spring semester where some schools were doing packets, some were trying to do the portal. Like a lot of them call it LMS, which is a learning management system for their school. They have
Right.
a portal for parents to actually log in as well as students. So that's a good question to ask about like the assignments, you know, how
Right.
do they get them? How, you know, what are they? Are they hard copies or are they going to be assigned, you know, electronically through the school portal?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Program system thingy. The internet technology thingy, right?
Right.
Another good question to ask is what is expected of the teachers? Not that we're dissing teachers at all. As parents, we love our teachers. But is the teacher expected to do X amount of hours live with students?
Yeah.
Is the teacher expected to make phone calls? So you understand what's expected of the teacher, because then, and the next question is what's expected of the student, right? How many hours? What's expected? Do they have to log in live? Or if they don't log in live, are they considered truant, right? Or if I don't turn in the packets, are they considered truant? And that can be a whole nother can
So
of
I got a
worms.
question for you. You mentioned the word truant. What would that mean? What does that mean to a
So
parent?
to a parent, it's not a good thing. So if your student is not attending school and like pretend like there's no COVID, right? And you just aren't sending your kid to school and you don't have a plan for them and or they're just ditching all the time. And as a parent, you don't know what they're doing. It's actually legal in a lot of states. The parent can be held legally responsible for truancy of their student. Meaning if their student is not attending school or not registered with homeschool, depending on the state, or attending their charter or their private, whatever it is, you get in trouble. Like parents have gone to jail for truancy, which is that crazy word. So what is expected of the parents, right? What is the school? What if I'm doing distance learning? I'm having my little boy do distance learning this year. What are you expecting me to do? Are you expecting me to sit down by him for 8 hours and have him be on the computer? And my job is to sit there and watch him? Do I need to find a babysitter for him? Do I need to get grandma? Or, the older sibling? What are you expecting from me as the parent to help facilitate at home or distance learning, right? And then what does that look like if I have to be at work, which is a huge percentage of us? We aren't working from home. We have to go to work, right? Physically at work. My sister, she was working at a Pepsi plant. Now she's driving for Uber. And she's going, okay, I've got, my older girls, I could trust them to sit at home and do their school, but am I going to be first grader?
Yeah, I told you we can't talk today. It's Monday.
First grader, there's no way. And, Uber's not going to let him come and ride along with, in the car with the person I'm delivering to their next destination. So what am I supposed to do with him? So as a parent, what are you expecting from me to help facilitate that? And can I facilitate that again in the evenings or the weekends? How can you work with us, working parents who can't just be at home?
Yeah, and then so I think, Shay, what you brought a good comment there when you were saying, what if I have to go to work? So what are some other options that you've been hearing around?
So I've been hearing a few. I heard last week that Austin, so again, we're from Texas, so that's mostly what we're hearing, right? Austin Independent School District is allowing the YMCA to come in and utilize like their gym. And those students will still be distance learning, and they will be being taught by their teachers and have the assignments by the teachers. The YMCA staff is mostly there almost just to babysit and watch out for the health and well-being of the student, right? So you're not leaving your first grader, kindergarten, or second grader, even fifth grader at home alone where there's a stove.
Is there a cost to that though?
And so far, everything I've seen across the state, because I've been trying to follow this, there is a fee and a cost to that, which totally stinks. Myself, there's no way I can afford, $200 a week for this. The karate place in my town is offering the same thing. The gymnastics place is offering the same thing. Drop your students off here in the morning. We will watch them. We will make sure they're doing their school. But again, there's a cost to that, and not everybody can afford that. I know currently I can't. My mom, who was a single mom, no way would she have been able to afford that.
Well, yeah, especially like me, I had 4 kids. I mean, there's no way I could afford to pay that because I'm pretty sure they charge per child.
Yeah.
Having 4 kids, how does a parent, either a single parent or even a working parent, can afford something like that? And this is where I wish the state of Texas would have more choice programs like tax credit, scholarships, education savings account. I'm gonna have to say that, because if we had these options in Texas, these types of fees could help parents like us, where we're in this pandemic freeze, where we have to go to work, but we have something where we can pay. Like it would be our either tax credit, scholarships can help pay for that, or education savings accounts can help pay for that cost, where a parent doesn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Right.
But there's only, I think, 4 states, and then DC that have those currently. So the other, let me do math, 46 states. That's not an option. And so what do I do, school?
Right. I mean, this is where you go back to your school. Some schools are really trying to offer, programs. And actually, I've heard some school districts, now I didn't hear that they were helping parent, but I did hear that they were helping teachers, like having their own daycare in the school district, while, if a teacher is doing distance learning, they can bring their child to the campus and somebody would be watching the child while they.
Right. And we're not saying go and attack the school and say, we need to answer all these questions. It's, hey, did you think about this question? Did you think about this issue? How, who, all those kinds of things, so that they can come up with the answers to these questions that are vital for our parents to know when they're making that decision, and then when they're in the middle and in the thick of it, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And I think a really good question too, now that we kind of hit the topic, is how do parents communicate with the teacher? How does a student communicate, with the teacher? With this pandemic hoodie in the spring, a lot of us were just kind of, everywhere when it came to communication.
Right.
It's getting clarification, hey, I just want to make sure, how do we communicate with each other?
Right. Well, how does the student communicate with the teacher? Is it just email? Is it Google Classroom?
Mm-hmm.
What if I have a question on the assignment? Do you have, office hours? That's, a thing in full-time virtual school. When the teachers aren't actively live teaching, they have office hours where if you have a question, you can go in and ask, the teacher, how I didn't understand this thing from the lesson, or this isn't working, and then what I heard from a lot of parents was they didn't have a way to communicate with the teachers.
Right.
The students did. The students could use Google Classroom or whatever it is, but there wasn't a really good system to communicate with the teachers. So what is how are we communicating? Both the students with the teachers, teachers with the students, parents with the teachers, teachers with the parents, all this back and there's kind of 4 parts there, because it's 2-way on both of those.
too, I think what's a great question, a follow-up question to that is, well, if my student is struggling, you know, is there tutorials? You know, how are you handling, you know, students that are struggling with, you know, the work that you're assigning? If they're falling behind, how can my, you know, like, good example, when my son was in a public charter school, they had student mentors. These were students who had like a 4.0 as a GPA, and they were able to work with other parents, with other kids
Right.
to help them with tutoring. So
Right.
I think it's good to ask too, how do they get that extra support if they're not either one, if they cannot get a hold of the teacher, how is it that they have some kind of tutorial services for their students?
Right. Or if there is grading along the way, so the teacher knows somebody's falling behind, is there automatic tutoring that they're automatically put into? Okay, every Friday you're in tutoring at 2. You know, whatever that looks like. That's what my kids had with full-time online. You know, the teachers knew right away that they were falling behind, and so they were automatically put into tutoring. Not that they were happy about that, because maybe it meant, you know, a little extra school time that they had to do, but it was needed, and right away they could see that. So in the system that they're using, is the teacher going to know that they're behind? You know?
Yeah, how are they tracking that? And I think another good thing to do is with tools, you know, find out outside of the schools what are good tools that can help your son or your child. Like we use Khan Academy.
Right. I think we're going to talk a lot about that next Monday.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, the 8th? Is that the right date? I gotta look.
Today's August 3rd. That I do.
Us 7. That would be the 10th. Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, good math there, Shay. So Monday the 10th, yeah. Because as we were thinking about that, it was, if your kid is struggling or it's boring, like either one, right? They're beyond it or they're struggling. What are some outside resources outside of what your traditional school is doing? So we're going to talk, we're really going to delve into that. And we're going to do a lot of research, both with what Wendy and I have done, and then a bunch of research. So
and it'll be at the palm of your hand. Yeah, well, we can set it out so you're like, okay, here's tutoring. Here's, you know, it'll be very easy for you to follow. I think another good question to think about is, you know, these school portals. Like, how long is that portal open? Is it 24 hours? Right. Is it only during the day? Is it 8 to 5? Or is it 5 to 10? Or is it, you know, are there blocks of time where I can get support? You know, if I have
or turn the stuff in or watch the lesson. Is the teacher recorded? You know, that's another great thing with full-time virtual, is you can go in and watch the recording of the teacher's lesson. Is that going to be offered? You know, is the school utilizing a packaging or their portal or a technology system that is proven? You know, are they partnering with people who've been doing this? This isn't a new thing. It's just a new thing to 99.9% of us. But the little, you know, 0.1% of us, or 1%, have been doing it for 2 decades through systems that are proven, like K-12 Connections and others who've been around for and know how to do this. So is your school partnering with one of these systems, or are you making it up? You know, as you go. Or did you find one, you know, and you did your research? Awesome. You did your research, but does it check all the boxes that you needed to check as a parent?
Yeah, and Shay, I think another good question is, well, you know, how will parents and students know how to use this? Is there technology training?
Right, technology training. And a lot of times it's called onboarding. Not waterboarding. That's really bad. It's not like that. It might be painful, but ideally the school is training their teachers right now in whatever, you know, portal system management program that they're using, so the teachers know how to use it, right? But then you as a parent need to know, how do I access the part I'm supposed to access?
Right. Because
How does my student be, not just how do I do it, but how does my student do it? Because my student's in first grade. They're not going to be the one clicking. I'm going to be the one clicking, you know, or grandma or auntie or my friend down the street who I'm making dinner for, so she'll watch my kid.
Right.
You know, how do the students utilize this technology instead of just like day one, you just assume that they know? That's,
right.
You know, that does not happen. Because everyone's going to be new to whatever that system is. Even if it's Zoom and Google Classroom. Even if it's that, walk me through.
Yeah, just walk me through it. Like, if something's not working, who do I completely contact to know? Especially if this portal is only open to, like, you know, a certain time frame. Like, who can I contact right away?
Or if you gave me technology, or there's a program and it's not working, is there an 800 number?
Yeah.
You know, is there an IT dude or lady on the other end of the phone that can talk me through? I can't get my kid on.
Yeah, because to be honest, you call the school, if you get the receptionist, I mean, she's not going to be able to help you. She's going to transfer you to the person that can truly help you, or we hope.
Well, and I've been doing some online scouting things, hence my background, since April. And I'll be in live teaching a class, and I'm seeing my phone blow up because there's a kid for some reason can't figure out, lost the Zoom link, you know, all that kind of thing. And if it's just the teacher teaching, it's really hard to stop the class and let 10 kids in, right? My sister, who's a teacher in California in charter school, said they've hired moderators. So not just the teachers, but they've hired helpers, right? So classroom assistants. And that person's job is to make sure all the kids can get in. That person's doing the attendance. That person's watching the chat. You know, all those kinds of things, so that you can just sit there and teach. It is too hard. I can attest to it myself. It is too hard to teach and deal with the technology issues that the students have at the same time. So there needs to be another place other than the teacher for parents and kids. I mean, you know, our high schoolers and junior high kids, they can call and say, I can't get in, help me.
So I think it's just to remember is it's not just the teacher that's going to be able to help you answer this question. It's probably most likely another person when it comes to technology who you need to talk to if you have some, you know, issues. And I think the other question would be is, you know, for cyber safety, what is the school doing to keep my kids safe, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I was, you know, if you've been doing any kind of Zoom, anything with your work or things like that, a lot of times they're giving you passwords to get in because they were getting Zoom bombed. That's what they were calling it.
That was a big topic too.
Yes. And so hackers were getting in, and these are kids. These are under 18, my baby, that I don't want some weirdo knowing my kid's name, right? And where they live. Because they can figure out at least the town. You know, I live in Pflugerville, Texas. If it's in a Pflugerville school and they see my kid's name in a Pflugerville school, they've narrowed it down.
Right.
And that's not okay with me. So what are you doing, you know, in that? So every type of technology, how are you keeping my kids safe? Also from cyberbullying. You know, one thing that I was running a summer camp for scouts all online this year because we couldn't be out in the woods. And so I brought the woods to them, you know, behind me. But you know, on Zoom, which was the portal we were using, it was constantly reminding the kids that if you're going to chat, you have to chat to everyone, not one-on-one, because we didn't want cyberbullying to happen.
Right.
I didn't want, you know, Susie saying something snotty to Bobby and I didn't know. That's not okay with me in my class. Because in my class, if we were live, I'd know. I hope. In the hallway, not so much. But in my class, I better know. So what are you doing about things like that? Thinking about the safety from outside weirdos, right? Even in Kahoot, I was doing, I don't know how many Kahoots. I'd probably done 25 Kahoots. And then all of a sudden I opened one Kahoot and I was Kahoot bombed or cyber bombed or whatever you want to call it. So I had to close it really quick and then let just my kids in and then lock it. And then, and then it was just my kids. Every portal that you're using or every technology that you're using, do you have a way of locking weirdos out? And then also the cyberbullying from within your own class and school. That is a huge thing. A lot, and I'll get emotional. Because the work I've been doing for a decade is with full-time online students. And the majority of kids that come to full-time online public schools are bullied. And the percentage within that bullying now in 2020 and 2019, right? It can be a physical thing. But that's a smaller percentage of the bullying now. It's much more cyberbullying. And I personally know multiple kids who became suicidal because of cyberbullying. And that breaks my heart. So as we're going into this new storm of the unknown, please protect these babies.
Yeah, it's our babies.
Not just from the weirdos, but from the other kids that just don't know better or find power in that, whatever it is. And so does your system that your ISD has chosen, does it keep our kids safe?
And I think another question to bring is while school districts are actually, this is also new to them when it comes to using these types of tools, is tell them to communicate. You gotta, as parents, we gotta speak up. We gotta advocate for our kids. Like, look, I know Zoom was, it was a struggle for me. It's probably a struggle for you guys. Keep, in tabs with parents to say, hey, we're working with Zoom. We found out that this was going on. We're getting this done, instead of keeping us in the dark. Those are the types of things that you want to tell your child's school. Because a lot of times they're trying to, burn fires. They're trying to put them out, right? They're trying to put out these fires as fast as they can before they can actually communicate, to the parents and students. But at the same time, just make sure, hey, how are you communicating if this comes up in this issue with us? And then what are you doing to work on it? That was something I always did a lot because I understood from both sides. Having my husband work for a school district, I always hear it from a person who works in the district, and I was like, okay, I get that. But, so we would always work together, on when we were at our kids' school, how, if we think that, to ask those particular questions, to understand both sides. So these are our babies. We want to make sure that they're safe.
Right.
Anything happening to them. And we understood that that these are our babies. So what are you doing as a school district to make sure to work with these new tools, right?
Right, exactly. We don't want to go to them as though we're attacking them. We want to go to them as though we're partnering with them, because that's truly, if at no other time, we are partnering with our schools and educating our kids, because they're at home utilizing, public or charter school or private even. And so come to them as though it's a partner. Okay, yes, good, I'm glad you're doing this. Are you doing this? What do you need from me? There's always that give and take part for sure. The other thought, as we were talking about this, was we're talking a whole lot about technology, but not everybody's going to get a device. Right.
What do you mean by devices?
Device as in a Chromebook or an iPad or a laptop from the school. Not everybody at their house. I'm too old, so I didn't grow up with a computer, but
I didn't either.
I think that's an age thing. But I know my sister, she had 3 kids, did not have technology. She does not have that in her apartment with her 3 kids to be able to utilize. The school did not give that to them last spring, So during the summer, were they going and partnering with Dell and Samsung and Apple and getting grants, to have one-on-one, which is that one device for every child? Were they doing that? Were they only, I'm hearing some ISDs are like, oh yeah, we're doing that for our high school students or for our junior high and high school students. Okay, then what's the plan for our little kiddos?
Yeah, for our little kids, what are you doing? Are you going to
How do they see their teacher? Right? Yeah. Is it is it a YouTube video that the teacher, I mean, I know teachers are getting super creative. Teacher's going to make a YouTube video with the day's lesson and send it to me. Okay, then we're going to get out our phone and watch it and then do the day's thing. Who gets a device, right? What about, okay, say the school provided my sister with 3 laptops or even 1 laptop that they all could share, because I understand funding, right? She doesn't have internet at her apartment. So
that was a lot of issues back in the spring.
Yeah, are you providing hotspots? Is there going to be hotspot buses? I know that we are getting super creative. I heard of hotspot buses a while ago and thought that's amazing. And they were really creating them back a while ago for homework.
Yeah, because I know, I'm going to actually say Spring Branch ISD here in Houston was doing the Wi-Fi buses for their communities, meaning, if your child is logged into the portal, they are going to be able to get that, Wi-Fi, and it's charged to the school. It's nothing where the parent needs to do, but you've got to log into the portal so you can have that, and then they give instructions on how to do it, but they put these buses certain parts of the community so that their communities can have access to Wi-Fi. And that includes teachers too, because
absolutely,
I don't know how many teachers were going to the campuses trying to log in. They're trying to do instruction in the car because they're close to the campus trying to do Wi-Fi. And I saw the teacher did that.
Yeah, that's my other I get emotional about. These teachers
had to be creative.
Have to be creative, and their little hearts are getting broken. My heart is broken for them as they are trying to figure out, number one, how do I teach distance learning, and how do I get on? I don't have internet at my apartment or my house.
Yep.
So library, can I sit at the library parking lot? Library kid, are you gonna, I have heard of some libraries are literally setting up little rooms for teachers to teach from.
Yeah, and
because they have Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
Out in the country, and that may be the only building in the city or in their town, their village, that has Wi-Fi. If you live out in the country and there is no internet, I mean, I was having internet problems out at camp, right?
Yeah, because there was, it came on the news here in Houston where there was a mom, actually several moms, but there was one from Alvin that was saying, hey, I have internet, but my connectivity sucked. Like, how am I supposed to do distance learning if I can't even get that connectivity here? So that is another thing to bring up with the school. Like, hey, I am a mom that has internet, but my internet in my area is not good, where either my kid can watch, the teacher and all of a sudden freezes. And then what? It's, I can't afford to upgrade. I can't, there's so many obstacles.
So are they offering hotspots?
So that's
are they offering stipends, right? Okay, we are going to give you a check for X amount of money for you to spend on internet, and you have to send us a receipt. I don't know how they do that, right? But they're getting creative, but you need to know what your school is offering as far as technology, who gets it, and then how do you access it. And then if it's not that, if it's the younger ones, or your school's not offering distance learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's packets, how do we get the packets? What is it every week? Is it you're going to give me the packet for the next month of stuff with textbooks? Is that what you're doing?
Curriculum in a box?
Right.
I had to bring it.
Yeah, or if it is the device, what's the distribution day?
Yeah.
What if I'm at work? You're saying you're distributing between noon and 3? I'm at work until 6.
Right.
So how do I do that?
How are you helping families that cannot be there during the regular distribution hours? Or how are you helping us?
Yeah.
Communication is a key. Knowing when, and this is where parents' voices need to come out and say, "Hey,
Hold on.
hold your horses." But I get it. I'm happy that you're trying to help us, but hey, I work till 6, 7 o'clock. How do I get this?
Right.
Or can I send somebody, another family member, maybe with my child's student ID or something, to show that they're there to pick up for my child?
Right.
These are other options on how to work with parents when it comes to picking up, the distribution of devices or even, the packets. So it's a good question to ask, in these types of schools.
For sure. So again, today was all about, what was that, over 20 questions?
And just think, there's more questions. And I know all of you probably have what, I've talked about a lot of these questions in the spring, but yeah, it's good to bring up those same questions to make sure you have a clear understanding of how your child is going to be supported and educated.
Well, and that the school knows they need to answer those questions because they may have thought of 5 questions. They're going to ask these questions. Well, actually, they're going to ask 20 questions, or more. So, literally print it off from the website, email it to the school. If there's school board meetings coming up, right? Obviously, a lot of those are virtual, but they're allowing for questions from the public, which they have to do beforehand. A lot of times they're doing it beforehand instead of live. So it's send the list. Send the list of questions to your school board so they can go, how are we doing that? I hadn't thought of that.
That's a great thing you brought up too when I was bringing about following, go to your child's school district website. Find out about school board meetings. You can set up your own alerts to find out when they're meeting, when you have to submit questions, because a lot of them will not let you submit. Most of them will tell you have to register so many hours. You cannot register the same day. So find out what those rules are so that you can ask those questions. And write them all up, hey, I'm going to ask this, 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 and this. And if it is, where you just copy and paste it so they can see it. Some school boards are not allowing some of them to do chat where they can ask the questions, but they are allowing them to submit the questions. So do that. Listen to them, make sure that, they're heard. And then ask the question, hey, if nobody answered my question, I'm going to go to the superintendent and ask the superintendent. You've got to figure that out.
Right, or the principal or whatever it is.
Yeah, principal, superintendent, whoever you're going to ask, make sure you have that chain of command, right? I always had this chain of command little thing. Or all the parents were looking at me like, why do you have this? I said, well, if the principal didn't answer me, who am I going to go next? We had, another person that was over the principal and then another person before getting to the superintendent. I went down that list.
Right.
You got to do this as a parent. Push these questions, ask the questions, to make sure your voices are heard.
Yeah. So you can and some of it, you're making this decision so you understand what you're going to be doing distance learning, but some of it is you have the answer so you can go, I don't like those answers. Is there open enrollment in a different district? I can go to a district that I liked those answers, or a charter, I liked their answers. Right. Or, I saw last Thursday the thing Shea and Wendy were talking about, these full-time online schools that have been around for forever.
Maybe I want to do that
out. So if you don't like the answer, it's your kiddo. Do what you need to do for your kid.
Yeah, you are your child's first teacher. But I also want to say to stay tuned for our next show on Thursday. We will have a special guest host, longtime special education teacher, giving us tips to parents on, let me make sure I say this right, individualized education programs. I'm used to saying IEPs, but
IEPs is what we usually say, but
I have to stop real slowly and do it like blah, with distance learning. So that will be a great topic to bring about so that we can, it's great to have her on the show if you have questions. please, reach out to me, Wendy at npunion.org. I had to stop and think about that one.
Is there
If,
two U's or is it just NP Union?
yeah, so if you have questions about National Parents Union, as well as like, how do I join? Or, I have other questions on the show, or I like to come on one of your show, you can reach us at info@npunion.org.
Right. So
that way. If you want to reach out to Ms. Shea, how do they reach out to you?
yeah, so you can email me at shay@publicschooloptions.org. That's my email with National Coalition for Public School Options. And I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And we know that this time is not ideal for everybody. This is just kind of when we could get into NPU's schedule. So we hope you're watching some recordings of this when it does work for you. So know that go ahead and send us, especially if you have an IEP question. For this Thursday. How can I have my kids' IEP work during distance learning? And if you have some specific questions, maybe tell us how it didn't work during panic schooling, pandemic schooling, whatever it was. Or maybe to ask her what questions to ask the school for your students' IEP. Right? So reach out to us, email us ahead of time so we can make sure and ask this expert, because Wendy and I both have had students with IEPs, but that's not our job, right? And so that's why we're bringing in an expert.
Sometimes you do feel like next. I've met some parents who are experts.
Oh, yes.
So, and we invite those parents too. If you've been doing this for a long time and you want to share your knowledge, reach out to us. We'd love for you to come on the show, talk about your experiences, especially during this, pandemic cooties. And like we mentioned, if you forgot your pen and paper, no worries. Like all of this information, questions, especially about the buzzwords or the next topics that we're going to talk about, you can find all of these questions and resources on About the Parent Connection show on the website of mychildmyvoice.org. You can find all of this information on there at the tip of your fingertips. You can go in and say, you want information about the buzzwords or about these questions we run. And if there's questions that you didn't see that you would like to see on there, like, hey, I thought of a good question, let us know. We'll add it to our list,
Absolutely.
Let us know. We were happy, and I hope you can all join us Thursday. We're all going to be excited to come back and talk to a special education teacher. She is a hoot and an angel at the same time.
My kind of lady.
So thank you, National Parents Union, for allowing us to have the show for Parent Connection. And thank you for joining us and talking about questions for distance learning. And we hope to see you Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye. See ya.